Hey everyone, and welcome to today's explainer session. I am absolutely thrilled to be here with you. As an expert lecturer and classroom design coach with over 15 years under my belt, helping young learners actually focus through better space design is, well, it's my absolute passion. Whether you're a parent trying to set up a home learning corner, a teacher organizing your classroom, or even an instructional designer mapping out a brand new educational space, this is for you. We're going to pull back the curtain and reveal the hidden mechanics of student attention and learn how to design spaces that naturally guide behavior using everyday concepts.
Okay, so let's just dive right in with a super powerful thought from our source material that pretty much instantly debunks a massive myth. A classroom does not ask for focus once, it asks for it all the time. See, the myth is that focus is just this fixed personal trait, right? That a kid is either simply focused or unfocused. But the truth? The truth is that attention is a constant, ongoing response to the environment. Students are continuously, and honestly usually unconsciously, deciding if the room makes concentration easy or basically impossible.
To make sense of all this, here is our roadmap for today. First, the myth of focus. Second, the internal mechanics. Third, the external mechanics. Fourth, the systemic loop. And finally, number 5, the new lens.
All right, jumping into section 1, the myth of focus, and exactly why attention slips.
Focus is incredibly fragile. It breaks so easily when a room sends mixed signals. We really need to stop blaming students for being distracted and start figuring out what in the physical room is literally producing that distracted feeling. Think about the incredible contrast between two very different environments. On one hand, you have a highly distracted space with way too many visual cues competing for the eye. It's chaotic. But then, think of a deeply focused environment, kind of like a traditional Beijing courtyard. In a space like that, the movement, the sight lines, the shared spaces, they're all deliberately designed to shape how people gather and connect. Nothing is an accident. And you know what? The exact same principle applies to our learning spaces. Classroom design really is attention design.
Moving right along to section 2, the internal mechanics. Let's talk about attention limits.
Now, before we even think about sliding furniture around, we absolutely have to understand the brain's internal bottlenecks. Attention isn't some magical infinite beam of light shooting out of a student's forehead. It's actually a lot more like a spotlight, powered by a battery. It can only illuminate a few things at any one time. And because the human brain is literally built to detect change, competing novelties like, a scraping chair, a classmate whispering, or even a super bright new poster, they drain that battery so fast, they're practically screaming, "Look here first." This means motion and novelty can totally hijack a student's focus before they even consciously decide to pay attention. Add in some social uncertainty, like a student wondering, "Am I being watched?" or "Do I even belong here?" And you've got an environment that pulls their attention entirely inward, just zapping that spotlight's battery.
And this invisible cognitive cost is huge. If your space forces students to search for materials or constantly guess what the routine is, it's exhausting. Think of it like trying to cook in a kitchen where every single utensil is in a totally different room. I mean, sure, you might eventually cook the meal, but the energy cost is just ridiculously high. If a student burns through their attention just trying to get set up for a task, there's obviously way less energy left for the actual learning.
So how do we actually protect that attention? Well, the mind needs two basic things, a target and a boundary. Picture a flashlight shining in the fog. If the beam is too weak, nothing stands out, right? You have no target. But if the fog is too thick, the light just scatters everywhere and you have no boundary. Whether you're a parent at home or a teacher in a school, your space absolutely needs clarity to prevent wandering minds, and it needs boundaries to stop that focus from scattering all over the place.
All right, section 3, the external mechanics, how we physically guide behavior.
So now we look at how the physical room interacts with those mental limits we just talked about, acting as a sort of behavioral landscape. Just like in nature, where walking paths naturally form wherever it's easiest to walk, in a classroom, behavior flows right down the path of least resistance. The absolutely crucial point here is understanding a concept called an affordance. An affordance is simply a possibility that the environment makes obvious. For example, a chair affords sitting. A clear, organized desk affords starting work instantly. A whiteboard at the front affords shared attention. Students aren't sitting down and rationally calculating their next move. They intuitively respond to the physical invitations that are embedded right there in the room.
And that brings us to friction. Now, friction is the small amount of effort required to actually do something. And here's the secret. Behavior is shaped way more strongly by friction than by big, loud rules. Actually, let me emphasize that. If turning around and talking to a neighbor requires less physical effort than getting up to find a missing worksheet, distraction is going to win every single time. We have to make the right behaviors the absolute easiest ones to perform.
Let's break down how specific design choices can lower this energy cost of learning in different spaces. For the parents out there setting up a home study area, simply making materials clearly visible encourages an independent startup. Why? Because it completely eliminates the need to search. For teachers, creating clear, wide circulation paths encourages calm movement because it naturally prevents collisions. And for designers, arranging stable, predictable seating means routine behavior requires far fewer decisions. Ultimately, good design just lowers the energy cost of learning.
A truly great learning space has what we call high legibility. This means the expectations of the room are completely visible without the teacher having to constantly nag or give verbal corrections. The room itself actually teaches its own curriculum. If group tables are arranged facing each other, the room is teaching that discussion is normal. If there's a really clear, dedicated place for personal items, the room teaches that organization is expected. It's brilliant.
But there's a hidden trade-off here. It's all about guiding behavior without over-controlling it. Think of it like a riverbank. If the riverbanks are way too loose, the water just spreads everywhere and completely loses its force. But if the banks are too tight, the water can't move naturally at all. The perfect channel structures choice. It gives just enough clarity to reduce uncertainty, but keeps enough openness to preserve a student's sense of agency.
Which takes us to Section 4, the systemic loop. This is where attention truly meets behavior.
This is where the whole shebang comes together. The physical space and the internal attention merge into one continuous system. Let's walk through this cascading loop step by step. Step 1, attention decides what gets noticed in the room. Step 2, the physical affordances shape what feels possible to do. Step 3, friction changes what actions actually feel easy or hard. Step 4, visibility and legibility change how students self-regulate. And finally, Step 5, when these cues are repeated day after day, they create deep, lasting habits. These elements are constantly working together to either wonderfully stabilize focus or quietly undermine it.
And lastly, Section 5, the new lens, building a true culture of learning.
Our ultimate goal here is shifting our whole identity from just judging a room by how cute it looks to seeing how it builds a stable learning culture. I'd love for you to use these practical questions to assess your own spaces. Does your room reduce unnecessary visual competition? Does the furniture layout make the next right action the easiest action to take? Does the setup create shared focus without making students feel anxiously watched? Really good classrooms don't just control behavior in the moment, they build an entire culture where focus just feels natural.
So I want to leave you with this somewhat provocative question to ponder. What is this classroom training attention to do? When we start asking this, we stop blaming the learner. We stop obsessing over aesthetics. Instead, we start looking at the deeper behavioral logic of the room. We start to see exactly where energy is being drained and where positive behavior is being quietly, naturally nudged. Which brings us to our final and maybe most powerful thought. A classroom is never just a place where learning happens, it is part of how learning happens. I really invite you to step into your spaces tomorrow with this new lens. Look for the friction, look for those affordances, and empower yourself to truly design for focus. Thank you so much for hanging out with me on today's Explainer session. Keep observing, keep tweaking, and keep designing those absolutely brilliant spaces for learning.